have to, should I just click the middle or the right?
Left or right.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Now pick up your
Oh. That's weird. Okay. Look, I should have curled my hair or something. And let me check it now. Okay, hi everyone, I'm Kristi Grooms. So I've been a pinch hitter professor in this class all semester, and then today I'm gonna chat with you guys. So there's gonna be a couple things. I do have lots of information about motivation that we're gonna talk about today, but I also just want to kind of address a few things that I feel like people have kind of brought up through all of the speeches that you guys have heard and all the lessons. And that's kind of what has created the progression of what I'm talking about today. But here's the deal. If there's anything that you guys want to know about or have just questions about in general, I want you to please just ask. Feel free to interrupt me, raise your hand, because this time is really for us. This is like a great opportunity for us to kind of get some clarification. Sometimes they go so quick on topics or their story that we don't get to fill in the gaps on as to, well, he brought up this idea, like, I'll give you an example. One of the gentlemen brought up social capital, the dentist who made the masks. He brought up social capital over and over and over again. But it occurred to me, we didn't get a definition of what social capital was, right? So we're making an assumption. What he means social capital is our networks. Okay, kind of this idea of, and we all get social capital. We all get our networks of people. But let me ask you this: in our world, is a network of janitors going to get us further in life, or is a network of lawyers more powerful? They're both very legitimate, needed networks, but arguably a lawyer is going to do a lot more to get you out of trouble, keep you out of trouble, help you do certain things, right? So our society is valued like that kind of social capital, that kind of social connection over maybe some others. Not that that person doesn't have value, but in terms of what it can get you and opportunities in life. So what he was talking about is he's got a large network. Because he had such a large network, he has a lot of social capital. So he could call in a lot of people for help, for answers, anything like that. Okay, does that kind of make sense? So those are kind of the things that we want to talk about. I try to encapsulate it here today, but we'll see how we go. So real quick about my journey, so you guys know. I grew up here. I went to West Rowan High, just down the street, grew up in Midvale. And then as you guys got to know me a little bit last week, my childhood was spotted with lots of deployments from my dad. And then my mother's from Argentina, so very much raised by an immigrant parent. So even though I am very white, very recognized and very affluent with the dominant culture, that's still an influence I have, right? That's not something that just because I don't have dark skin doesn't go away. I still was raised by an immigrant mother, and that's just a different way of growing up. And it's beautiful. And that's something that people don't see when they look at me, okay? I went to the University of Utah because I was like, I'm gonna be an architect. That's where they have a program. I'm doing this. I'm good at math and art. That does not add up to architect. Just so you guys know, being good at math and art does not an architect make, okay? So first of all, let me tell you, all those skills that they tell you add up to certain jobs, not necessarily true, okay? So it's really good for you guys to kind of get out into some different workplaces, some different scenarios. I did not know that I had a natural acumen for business. I did not know that until I was in my 20s. I didn't know that that was a thing. Even though I'd had tons of little businesses, we always had a little candy store in our front lawn and like made money for Disneyland every summer. We were always trying to sell things and do things. And I was always counting my money. All the time I was counting my coins. But I didn't know that that was a little business person sitting right there. And nobody ever told me that. I didn't know that, okay? So recognize those things in yourself and kind of where they can translate those skills. Similar to you, had a miserable experience academically, amazing experience socially, had so much fun up there. which I would encourage you guys to do, is like make the most of the social environment of college. That will help build up a lot of that social capital, right? This is where you get a lot of networking. It's packaged really nicely for you, right? Here's all your future accountants. Here's your future finance people, bankers. Here's your future graphic artist. You know, like you're making all those connections here, okay? So I graduated with that. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I left with a pretty bitter taste in my mouth. They had asked me to give the speech at graduation, and I was like, no way, because I knew that my graduation speech would basically be curse upon you all, curse upon the construction industry, I'm out. And then the housing market crashed 2 years later, and I would have gotten blamed for that. I mean, my mystical powers are not that strong, but they're, strong correlation, right? So I was not in a good place to do that, and I missed out on a really good opportunity because of how I felt about something, and I could have rewritten that story, but I chose not to. I went and worked for a few years. I worked in land development. It also sucked. It was not a great fit for me. I did build up some more confidence, but it was just not a good fit for me. And I had to recognize that this industry was not for me. So I put my feelers out into the universe and I said, what should I do? And it came so clear, so quickly to my mind, go and buy the water store. Okay. I worked for this purified water store over on 70 South and Redwood Road in high school, and we knew the owners really well. My dad had refereed the owner. Anyway, they were all friends, right? That's how I got the job. My brother had worked there, and they had put it up for sale, and so I'm gonna go buy it. I didn't know how I was gonna buy it. They were not lending money for businesses in 2009, 2010, the economy had crashed. They're not lending money for companies, let alone to a 24-year-old, right? So I called my brother, say, hey, do you want to do this? He's like, I want to do this. Then my parents found out we were doing this, and they're like, well, we want to get involved. And I'm like, don't ever do that. Don't ever do that. Parents want to get involved, just say, nah, thanks, it's cool, okay? Love my parents. I would be very cautious with the whole business family thing. But I didn't feel confident in my skills that I could do it alone. And I was very worried about the financial risk of doing it alone. I look back, I was dumb. I shouldn't have been so scared, but I was. So I partnered with my brother. We pooled our financial resources. We both put some cash in, and we both took out personal loans in our names. And we bootstrapped it, and we purchased it because it was a purchase price. It had a broker, sat down, purchased this company, set up our LLC. I got a crash course in state taxes, in payroll taxes. I felt fine hiring and firing people. That was cool. But all of that accounting, that payroll, the taxes part, okay, got to go get general liability insurance, right? If somebody slips some water in our store, that's $1 million lawsuit, right? I had to learn how to purify water, complex system. Sure, I worked there in high school, but you think they let me touch the machine? No, because they're smart, right? So I had to learn all of that. So a little bit of engineering went into this. I had to learn how to order equipment. I had to get suppliers. You know, their supplier went out of business. I had to find a new supplier. And this is all a learning curve because I don't know if you guys know this, they don't just sell those 5-gallon plastic polycarbonate bottles. They don't make them in Utah. They're not made here, okay? So you have to get them shipped in from somewhere. And the best way to get them is like 100,000 at a time. I don't have a place to store 100,000 water bottles that are this big, okay? So like all of these problems, you just kind of work through and we just figured it out. And for a long time, the company just stayed afloat. And people would come to me and say, I need a job. And I'm like, cool, I pay this much. This is not a lot of money back then. This is what I pay. And they're like, it's great. Okay. Gave people jobs, gave some high school students some jobs, helped my sister get a job through college because nobody could find a job during that time, right? I would have to say that is the most beneficial thing that company ever did was give people jobs when they needed it. The company never made a lot of money. About the time I had my second little girl, I relinquished my shares. I just kind of walked away from it, handed it over to my family and said, good luck. My marriage was falling apart, but little girl, she was born with some sicknesses. It was just not a good time for me to put any effort into business. I had just gotten my position here, so I was financially stable here, no longer needed that additional little support from here. So I pretty much walked away from it, okay? We moved the store and I got to redesign a new space, which was really fun. Use that architecture skill somewhere, right? So I was able to do that and then walk away from it. It was a blessing that I was able to do that, a huge relief. That doesn't always happen. And yes, I could have charged and said I need this much money for my shares, but I had made my initial investment back well over in the time. We paid it back to ourselves as if we had loaned the money, right? So we got all that money back. It was all fine. So I never lost anything in that whole process. And I learned a lot. And then during that time, I started working for a for-profit college, and they paid for me to get an MBA. So I was like, I'll do an MBA. And the MBA was so easy because I had already done it. I knew what it was like in the real world. That was completely opposite experience from architecture, right? I'd never done architecture in the real world. I had never drafted before. So for me, it was a huge benefit to actually get the education after I had some experience. So even though I'm a professor and I'm all about like, yes, please get your education, just know if you don't do it in that direction, in that path, that's okay. Because they will help you, right? Just as an education helps you do a better job in the workplace, your workplace will help you understand your education better and the application of your education and make it more useful to you, okay? I highly recommend you have both, okay? I would love you guys to have work experience and have good solid education. So by the time you hit, ideally, your 30s or 40s, you've got a really good career foundation and you can just grow, okay? All right, so that's a little bit of my journey and where I've been at. Higher ed found me, teaching found me, and that ended up being my calling. And I did not know that. That was not on my radar. Right before I got the water store, like I told you, put out to the universe, I called a couple mentors, and I had called one saying, hey, I've always liked being in a school system. Maybe I should be a school psychologist. And he's like, nah, you're not going to make much more than you make now, and you'll have to get a master's. He's like, go and get a master's in education to be a higher ed administrator. And I said, that's not a real job. Like that, nobody does that. Nobody goes to school to become a dean or a director. Like you're just like faculty and then they move you up. And he's like, no, this is a thing. This is a career path. And I was like, you're so silly. I'll go buy a water store. So I did that, right? I'm going to stay in architecture. It wasn't even 5 years later. No, maybe even 2 years later, I ended up falling into a higher ed administration position, and it was such a good fit. And I was like, why didn't I listen to him? He was my mentor. I called him for a reason, and I did not listen to him. Kind of silly. So sometimes the answers are in front of us, and we just don't recognize them as the answers. All right, so that's my journey. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about motivation. A few kind of themes have come up to me as we have been discussing. Also, I did really notice a huge difference in our speakers. Maybe you guys picked up on this. Most of the male speakers were married and had a very supportive family, and I got the impression that most of them had a stay-at-home wife that took care of a lot of the household stuff. 2 out of the 3 women didn't get married till much later in life. One of them didn't even have kids. The other one had her family and then got divorced and then gained her wealth after that. All the women gained their wealth without a family. All the men gained their wealth with their family. I thought that was really interesting. Now that might have just been our little sample, but I thought that was a really interesting thing to kind of notice. So sometimes we just have to do what life brings us. We get opportunities, we don't get opportunities. So we have to fill our life with meaning and with what we want to do somehow. So we have to keep our motivation, okay? So first of all, motivation is just that desire to act in service of a goal. We have a goal, and then how do we get there? And it's this driving force behind human behavior. Why do we do what we do? Okay, and it's a motivation piece. We have internal and external motivation. I know you guys have talked about this a lot in other classes, so I don't want to sit on it too long. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what do you do when you no longer have motivation? What do you do when you find yourself, you've poured 4 years into a degree that's getting you nowhere, you poured 3 years into an industry, work industry, and it's going nowhere. So last 7 years of your life feel like a waste. Okay, because that's where I felt, oh, and the housing market crashed. So now there's no jobs and your company, the company you're working for is going under and you find yourself unemployed. How do you keep up your motivation? I mean, I got really depressed during that time. And the company I worked for, they did everything they could to make sure that I did not get unemployment. Like they went from being so nice and kind to being vicious in a heartbeat. So some of the things you can do is just sit with the discomfort. I'm unmotivated today. I don't want to do this today. This is where I'm at, right? Sit with it. Hear that negative self-talk. Listen to it. It's wanting to talk to you and you keep pushing it away. That doesn't mean we're going to indulge it for too long, but maybe listen to what your mind is trying to tell you, like what kind of fears, what kind of things are demotivating you, okay? And then here's the trick. You gotta take action anyway. You gotta do what you need to do anyway. I don't want to do this paper. Well, yeah, nobody like wants to do the assignments, but do you want the degree? Do you want the knowledge? Do you want the opportunities? Do you want the skills? Yeah, okay, then let's just do it, right? Just sit down and do it. Okay, anxiety can really affect our emotion. I'm not gonna ask you guys, raise of hands, how many of you struggle with anxiety, right? But I'm sure at least everybody has felt anxiety. To what degree, I don't know. I do know that people who really feel anxiety and people who have no idea what that feels like have a hard time relating. Okay, they do. So like, I don't know how you live your life in peace and calm and make such reckless decisions. And they're like, I don't know how you live your life in so much fear and uncertainty. Just get over it. You be more, I mean, it's like talking two different languages. So just recognize that that is, you know, a spectrum, okay? So just, you know, anxiety is like persistent worrying. It's not like, oh, I'm kind of worried about this test. It's like you can't stop obsessing over this test, okay? It's an ability to set aside the worry. Like you can't just put it away. You can't just set it aside. You can't just move forward. Like it is right there in your face, okay? You can't concentrate and you're just really distressed about what if I make the wrong decision? Like what if I buy this company and I lose $25,000, right? What if I put 4 years into this degree and I don't like it? I don't want to do this, right? We worry about making the wrong decisions, right? Also that indecisiveness, okay? It's not only am I worried I'm not gonna make the right decision, so I just can't make any decision. That's all part of anxiety. So with anxiety comes procrastination. And I know procrastination is something that every college student I have talked to struggles with procrastination, okay? I have anxiety, so I am an anti-procrastinator. If it's due in a week and it's not done the first day of the week, I'm panicking that it will never happen, that it will never get done. So for me, I really have to like manage my time to not create more panic for myself, okay? But the ways you can stop procrastination are one, just kind of acknowledge that there's this underlying stress with the task. There's something about this task that is overwhelming you, or that is a barrier. There's something about this. Okay, so kind of acknowledge that, right? Like maybe it's the sheer amount of work. This is overwhelming. This is a lot I have to do, so I'm gonna put it off. Or I don't know how to do this, and it's gonna take me some time to figure it out. And that's effort. And I tell myself all the time, this sounds like a problem for future Kristi. Today, Kristi doesn't have the skills. Future Kristi might. Even though future Kristi is like in 20 minutes or like in a week, but today I don't have the skills. But in a week, I anticipate I will, right? Okay. So sometimes I do that. You can break a task up into smaller pieces. So instead of trying to tackle the whole thing at once, break it up. I see that a lot with students. They're like, they read the whole final for my class and they're like, I'm never gonna be able to do this project. And I'm like, well, right, because you have 16 weeks to do the project. I don't expect the final to be done on day one. I don't expect you to have the skills, knowledge, or tools to do that, and we're going to build up to it. Do you have faith in me? Okay, let's do it, right? So you have to have some faith in yourself, faith in the people who are asking you these tasks. Also, you can always just set a time limit on how much you'll spend on it. So just say, I'm going to do as much as I can in this project in an hour. And I will submit whatever I get done in an hour, because that's what I have. And if it's done, great. If it's not, I'll take the hit, okay? You can also set a due date for yourself. Just because somebody else doesn't give you a due date doesn't mean you don't give it a due date. Especially once we're in life and in work, we're in the workplace, work is perpetual. There's stuff that has to just be done all the time, or eventually, or at some point. And if you don't set a due date for yourself, there's all those others happening. They don't get done forever. Okay, so just set a due date for yourself. Also, I love this one. Give yourself a prize. Yay! Give yourself a reward. You did something hard. You did something you didn't want to do. So give yourself a prize for that. Maybe that's some extra video gaming time. Maybe that's a cookie, a squid, I mean, whatever you like to do. I was going to say like a run around the block, but I never reward myself with exercise. That is not a reward. Okay. So you can use these things also to your advantage. We can use negative emotions to actually help us do positive things, okay? So we can use it as a motivation to avoid negative consequences, right? So for me, I'm so worried that I'm not going to do well on this, that I'm going to work harder and try a little harder, okay? I'm so worried that I'm not going to meet the deadline that I'm going to do it early, okay? So we can avoid some pretty negative consequences by using our anxieties. Also, it might help us be better prepared because you're going to go through those worst case scenarios. So like finding the company. Okay, well, what if nobody walks through that door and wants to buy our water? What if this machine breaks and now we have nothing to sell, right? What if we don't get a supplier? What if this? What if people don't show up for their shifts? You know, and you can go down those paths and come up with solutions, and that's going to really help you. Okay, so it's not always bad. I mean, obviously you don't want to perseverate, live there forever, but you can use that to your advantage to kind of get you ahead, okay? Also, anxiety usually is a big red flag that you should pay attention to something. Okay, we don't feel anxiety about needless things. Usually there's something in there that is giving us a warning sign. It also might actually legitimately protect you from danger, right? Don't put yourself needlessly at risk. Don't put your financial situation needlessly at risk. It makes you think things through. And then also it might compel you to communicate. Sometimes anxious people just have like to call it like that verbal vomit where you're just like, I just need everyone to know how I'm feeling and I'm really worried about this, da, 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 da. And then sometimes it's good to know people now know how you feel and where things are. And it can create some conversations of, oh, we didn't talk about this, or we didn't create safety in this situation. So let's do that. Okay, the thing I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit more too about is fear. Especially as you guys are considering starting your own companies or getting your own companies or moving into these really important, influential, amazing positions. This shows up. It shows up. How many of you guys have said, I'm not going to apply for a job because I probably won't get it? Anybody not applied for a job? Was there any harm in applying for the job? Oh, I'd say there's all sorts of harm. I'm going to get rejected and I can't handle that, right? No, there's not any real harm, right? But we hold ourselves back constantly, consistently. We hold ourselves back because we're worried. So fear, just know it's a primal instinct. This is something that has not evolved out of humans, right? It has stayed with us. And we usually have a fight or flight sort of thing, but when you're in constant fight or flight, it will lead to chronic stress. And chronic stress is like a whole other bag of lectures that we could talk about, okay? And then there's a few things that we're worried about. There's fear of failure, right? Like, what if I fail at this? What if I'm not good at this? Does that mean I'm a failure? Maybe. We also have a failure of success, right? Like, what if I do really well? What if I get this job And then I actually have to do the job, right? And I have to do the job well, and people are going to look at me. And I'm in charge of salaries, and I'm in charge of hiring. And what if I make the wrong decisions? Like, this is no longer just my life. I'm now affecting other people's lives, right? When we get success, I know a lot of people who are like, I'd love to run for politics or office. I'd love to be in politics. I'd love to make some actual change from a very systematic, legal, enforceable side of things. But I don't dare be in the public eye because I'll be crucified. They'll all over my social media. People are going to know everything about me. That is a fear of success, right? Those are things that could happen. We might self-sabotage. Anybody ever done this? Oh, I finally found the most perfect person, this most perfect partner to be with. They treat me really well. I better be mean to them. I better push them away. Because this is so good that they could hurt me. I'm going to make sure they can't hurt me. So I'm going to hurt them first. People do this all the time. It sounds dumb when we talk about that, but you just watch any dating show ever, and you will see that. Okay? I love watching dating shows for psychology of relationships. It's really fun. Also, I do brackets anyway. Yeah, it's a different story.
You put them in a tournament?
That's The Bachelor, The Bachelorette. But there's this one where they have like a perfect match. They have to find a perfect match. So it's a logic puzzle. So I match them all. Anyways, it's dumb. Okay. But it's always really interesting to see. You see when people self-sabotage, you see that people go for things that are bad for them and they know it's bad for them, but they're like, but I love drama. Life's boring without drama. And you're like, but is it? Is it? I don't know. Also, I think sometimes we have fear or we don't do things that are good for us because we don't have enough self-esteem. We don't know our self-worth, right? We don't know how good we are or how good we can be. Okay? One thing I would encourage you guys to do is not just hire for what somebody is today, but hire who they will be with support, with your support. Okay? So know your self-worth, don't self-sabotage. And then just think about it. Do you have a fear of failure? Do you have a fear of success or both? So I like this quote. Don't really know where it came from. Found it on the internet like we do most things. Okay, what do I fear? I fear stagnation and lack of progress. I fear never reaching my potential and being average. I fear being forgotten. The past, yesterday's news. I fear giving up and being passed by, going softly into that good night. I fear letting those I love down, letting myself down. I fear settling, giving into the that's the way it is mindset. I fear dying without leaving my mark. I fear not feeling these fears anymore and just floating along. These fears feed me. They nourish my drive. I love my fear. Does any of this resonate with you? Is there any line that you're like, maybe? So one of the things we can do to get over our fear is to feel empowered, okay? Here's the deal. You always want somebody to see something in us, and then I will know I'm good at that. I need somebody else to love me, and then I know I'm worthy of love. I need somebody to empower me, and then I know I'm powerful, okay? That is a lot of times the way we think about things. In fact, it's the opposite, okay? I know I'm worthy of love, therefore you attract love, and people love you. I know that I have worth, and now people see your worth, okay? I know I am powerful, and that is how you gain power. So it sucks because sometimes you're sitting there and you're like, nobody's choosing me. Okay, I choose me. Well, that sounds like the stupidest consolation prize ever. I choose me. Nobody wants me in dodgeball. That's fine. I have my own team. That seems so lame, right? But the truth is nobody will choose you until you choose you. Okay? So you need to start choosing yourself and be empowered. So some things you can do is be open to possibilities. What could be out there for you? If you're too afraid to hope, because hope is scary, hope is dangerous, then at least start dreaming. Go into the what if land. let yourself just go there for a little while, and then you can start building towards it, because your imagination is not afraid of fear, but your brain is. Okay, so go into imagination land. Also, focus on who you are. You are running your own race. It is not a competition, right? So when you hear that, oh, well, they graduated by 21, they had their own company by 25, they did this, this, and this, their net worth was this by this age. I mean, you want me to compare my life to Phil Nelson's, who came up here and talked about his multi-million-dollar company? Like, I feel like a schmuck, right? Right? But we're not competing. I run my own race, he runs his own race, and that's all there is to it. Okay? Because as soon as I start comparing myself, I lose all my power, and they have all my power. And guess what? They don't know they have my power. They don't care that they have my power. But I don't have it, and they do. Okay? So your power needs to stay with you. Trust yourself. Network. That's social capital again, right? Love what you do. Hold yourself with grace. Okay? You hold yourself with grace, with integrity. When they go low, you go high, or just don't say anything at all. Okay? Some things don't deserve a response. I'm always the person who wants to explain things. I want you to know my side. And guess what? Sometimes the best answer is no. And that's it. I don't have to explain myself all the time. Right? Sometimes people ask a question that's like, I wouldn't even answer the question. I'll just say, well, what do you think? How do you feel about this? Okay. I started doing that more. Like when somebody complains about something that I've done, like my kids, I don't like the dinner you made. This is not the dinner I want to eat. How does it make you feel when you don't get to eat the dinner you want? Bad? Well, what can you do next time to get the dinner you want? I mean, like, right now it's no longer about me. It's, well, how did that make you feel that you didn't get what you wanted? Instead of them just complaining about me and then I take it and it pushes me down, I can put it back on them. Now, that doesn't mean I don't logically in my head go, okay, maybe next time I need to ask my kids what they want to eat. Let's make this a better process. But I don't have to take on what other people are just going to give me, because if not, you'll just get bogged down with everything that everyone wants to put on you rather than take on themselves. Okay? Also, you have to embrace the imperfect moments. Okay, you're going to plan something, you're going to have something magical, you're going to think this is how it's going to go, and it's going to be a crap show, and it's not going to work out. And then you're just going to laugh and say, yep, that's how this went, and you're going to love it because you'll have learned from it, or you'll have had a good moment, or you'll have connected with somebody, you'll have gotten something else from it. Okay, and you might not recognize that in the moment. It might take a few days and crying and shame and all those human emotions to realize it, but one day you'll get there. And you can look back at those moments, okay? With empowerment, I like to remind you that people get into high positions without the right to be there, okay? People get lucky. They're there, and they didn't earn it. They had no right to be there, but they're there, okay? So just know that you are also totally capable of rising up to those things which defy logic. So anybody says you can't do that, who cares? Statistically, if I were to like sum you guys all up, so like community college graduates 25% of its students. So if I were to look in this room, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 2.5 of you will graduate within 6 years. Statistically, you will all graduate, but like after 6 years, okay? Like at 10 or 12. 2.5. Who am I to say which 2.5 of you? Just one leg gets happening. I don't know. Okay, we'll round it up to 3. 3 of you get a degree. Who am I to say which 3 of those are? And then who's to say that this group, you guys are part of the 25%, and those other classrooms are not? Or who's to say that number has to stay at 25%? Right? You own you. Okay? You defy the logic. Somebody says you can't do something, you're like, really? Let's see, you know, a little bit of a challenge. That is not my last slide. Okay. God. Russell, you can get
Move to the next slide.
Yeah, I don't know if this is working.
Let's see here.
Pew, pew. Okay. So once you've found success, once you all have Maybe you already have them now, but what's maybe you guys have? The degrees, the accolades, the companies, the cars, the planes, the boats. I don't know. What do you get? The PlayStations. What do you guys spend your money on? The VR sets, the shoes, right? Once you have all of that you want, and you have reached your definition of success in this world, then how are you going to find significance? Okay, what made your life have meaning? Because I promise it's not how much money you made and how many awesome shoes you own, right? Even though that is awesome. And I totally want to be the person that has such a big closet and so many shoes that I have to then hire the person from Netflix to come and organize it for me. Like, I want that life, don't get me wrong. Like, where's the significance in my life? And it can be in the business you build, offering a service or product that people really need. It could be in giving people good, honest work that allows them to live a good life. I think it's extremely honorable and amazing gift if you can give somebody a really good salary, that you have a company that can pay them well enough that they can live a good life and that they're not working 2 or 3 jobs and they're not struggling to make ends meet. And you can provide that for them with something you built. That's amazing. So what I would encourage you to do, one last slide. Crystal, if you'll help me out here.
Okay.
I don't know why it won't work. Okay. You'll find your significance, and I would dare say a lot of peace in your life when you figure out what your true purpose in this world is. Okay. So get a little bit personal for a minute. I grew up hearing like kind of this story. Now, whether or not it was explicitly told me, this is what I imagined in my head, okay? This story of what a perfect person looks like, right? Of what the most valuable, amazing kind of person looked like. And I will tell you that they looked like an extrovert. Okay, they were definitely extroverted. They were a star. They were the kind of person that could sing the national anthem at a basketball game. They were the kind of person that if they were in a play, they would have the lead, right? They're shiny. People know them. They love them. They're beautiful. He had this idea of like what this amazing person was. They're the person who walked into the boardroom, knew what they were going to do, made the money, made the deals, made it all happen. And I was chasing, how do I be this person? How do I be this person? Because this is what success looks like, right? And it occurred to me, that is so unauthentic. That is not me. And in chasing after this made-up person of who I think everybody else thinks is perfect, or who I think is perfect, I was not being my authentic self, and I was doing myself a disservice. Because guess what? I'm an introvert. And I do not need to apologize for not going to club. I don't club, okay? And I don't need to feel bad about that. That's not how I get my nourishment for my soul. And I'm never going to be the person who goes into politics. I'm not going to go up there and put myself on a public forum and be like, here's what I think. You'll never see me post anything on Facebook or social media where I'm like, let me assert my thoughts and opinions. I need you guys to know. That is not me. That is what this person, this made-up person would do. They would be on a stage. They would shine. So I took some time and I, again, put it out to the universe. And I said, what is my role? Who am I? What am I supposed to be? Like, what is my true calling on this earth? Not what is my job? What am I supposed to do? Am I a mother? What is my true role here in this experience? And it came to me very quietly that I am a watcher. And my job is to, the part of who I am is to kind of like bear witness of the things that happen in this earth and tell stories that aren't being told. And to just watch and know. I have no idea at what point if this information will ever be shared, okay? I don't know if at any point that this role has any meaning. I don't know what the whole scheme of the world looks like. But it brought me so much peace in knowing that my role was not a voice of change. My role is not to go out and create history and change history and do all of this. My job is to sit and watch and know others who are doing it and know that those stories are unfolding and to collect that information. Seems a little hokey, I get it. But it was a really clarifying, peaceful moment for me to know that that was something for me. And it was a huge relief. I don't have to be this person that I thought I had to be. So I'd like you guys to figure out, what is your role? What are you meant to do? And that, I don't know what that will look like for anybody. But I really encourage you to figure it out, because I think you'll find a lot of peace, a lot of acceptance in your path when you know that this is who you are, this is what you're doing, and it's all beautiful and okay. So that's kind of all I have for you guys today. Do you guys have any questions or anything about any other speeches or anything you guys want to know? Any thoughts? Yeah.
This is like super specific, but earlier you mentioned you had to buy your general liability insurance.
Yeah.
Can you kind of give us the process of going through that?
Yeah.
And, I mean, we can probably search up and do it ourselves, but it might be easier to know
No,
what to
that's,
expect when we get it.
I love it. That's a great question. Okay, so you're gonna find an agent, an insurance broker. Okay. I encourage you guys all to use an insurance broker for your personal insurance. So instead of just calling up the State Farm guy, find an insurance broker. And what they do is that they can sell you any insurances, and they will do a cost comparison for you. So like every year my insurance guy calls me up and he says, hey, I ran your insurance through 10 different companies. This is the best deal for the most amount of insurance. Da, 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 da. Do you want it? Yes. So sometimes I stay with the same company, sometimes I switch. I don't do any of the work, the broker does, okay? So you're gonna find an insurance broker that does commercial general liability, and they'll do the same thing. They're gonna find 5 or 6 different companies that offer it. They're gonna find you the best deal for your company, and you'll have to give them some information about your company. Like, do you have a space? Like, do you have, like, kind of the nature of your business? Are you doing a service? Do you have a brick and mortar location? How much square footage? What are the risks? They're going to kind of quantify the risks. You're going to want at least $1 million in general liability. That is standard. If you can, carry $2 million, because we're in a very lawsuit happy world. If you ever have a retail space, everything is on you. Everything is on you. That landlord, by the way, if you guys really want to make money, own the commercial space. You pay for nothing. The tenants pay for everything, and you just get checks coming in on rent at least every single month. They do the full build out, and I think they're even responsible for every time the heater goes out, everything. They're like responsible for it all, which sucks when you guys move into a new space and the heater goes out and you know that you didn't use it. Like, you know that wasn't you. Obviously, it was somebody who's been there for 10 years. So anyway, insurance broker. Yeah.
Is it better to buy a retail space or lease it, especially starting out? Like,
Long run, own your space, because real estate is an amazing investment on its own. And if you can do like what that dentist talked about, where he had like 4 different buildings, and so they built out one and then got somebody to rent it, and then with that cost of the rent, they were able to build the next one, right? And you could do that. Like, if you can buy one building and you can get 3 renters in there, and then they pay for your space, so your rent is free, that's like ideal, right? Like, that would be the best case scenario. But you're gonna need a lot of capital and money and a down payment to get that, to get a bank to lend you the amount you need for commercial space. We're talking about millions, right? And you have to qualify that off of your personal income until your company has enough assets that it can qualify on its own. Does that kind of make sense? So just know that a lot of times, yes, we have LLCs and corporations that separate the liability from us, but that doesn't mean that the lenders are going to only look at your company's money. So that is why a lot of people, like the whole time I owned the water store, I had another job, because I couldn't qualify for a loan on the water store without another job. Okay. Things like that. Also just minimize my risk, right? Like, I didn't put all my eggs in one basket. You guys heard Phil say the same thing with kind of doing that kind of approach. So a lot of people do that. They'll keep the steadiness of a current job until they can build their company up with enough momentum and enough financials and information that then that company can be self-sustaining. So that's pretty typical with a business to do that. Yeah.
and how do you know how franchises do it? Like, when you want a franchise, do you as the owner like buy the properties for the franchise, or does the person buying your franchise?
So it's kind of going to depend upon the franchise, how they bundle it. Some franchises, by the way, are extremely picky on who they will even give a franchise to. Chick-fil-A, you have to go through this like super huge vetting process. And if the executives don't like you, you will never own a Chick-fil-A. Period. I had a friend whose whole life's dream was to own a Chick-fil-A, and he worked every job in Chick-fil-A for year after year after year, and he kept applying for franchise, and finally at one point they just said, Scott, we're never giving you a franchise, don't come back. And it like, I know, right? And exploded his life, because that is all he had planned to do for like, since he was like 15, okay? So he had to do a complete career change. And he went from working in the fast food industry to trying to get a good desk job, and they're just like, okay, like.
Why didn't they let him get a Chick-fil-A job?
I don't know, culture fit. I'm guessing that's why they didn't let him have a Chick-fil-A, or it could have been just financials. He didn't have enough of his own personal capital. So franchises cost several $1 million. I mean, some are cheap. You can buy like a Huntington tutoring center. You can buy some of those for like $50,000. And then you would, with those though, you would go and get your own lease for a space. And just so you guys know, leases with spaces are personally guaranteed. Personally guaranteed. So when you sign that lease, you personally are on the hook for the life of that lease, which can be $250,000 over the course of 5 years, easily. Okay. That water store, even though I had walked away from it, I had signed that lease. My name was still on that lease. So I still had a risk. I had some indemnification paperwork drawn up just in case, and it all worked out, it was fine. But you kind of have to watch for those things. So some of them look like a McDonald's or a Wendy's, where they have like a standalone building. There's like really weird things because they are often inside a commercial complex. So it depends on how the commercial property wants to do it. Sometimes they will sell you a portion of the land, or sometimes they will lease you that land, but then you build the building. Like there's so many complicated ways. You kind of have to go down that path to know how they do it, to kind of find out. But so some of them will package it, like I don't know the price, but like let's say a McDonald's, I think there's somewhere around 20 million to buy. Please don't quote me, if you could Google that. They're going to help you, that initial investment is going to get you the store, the equipment, the stuff, and then you have a franchise fee that you just pay every month to McDonald's. And then they send you so much of their marketing materials, and there's so much support and all of that. But then any money that McDonald's makes, you keep. And I believe McDonald's pays themselves back in the full investment within just a few years. Like, but the barrier to get in is significant, right? Like, I don't know about you guys, I don't just keep like 20 mil in my back pocket. Like, I'm lucky if there's a $20 bill back there, right? So, but there's ways to get there. There's some creativity.
I think I Googled it.
How much is it?
So if in order just to like apply to have a franchise at McDonald's, you have to have $500,000 available in liquid assets and be able to
Cash.
pay $45,000 franchise fee. And then you are expected to shell out anywhere between, McDonald's franchise can expect to shell out between 1.3 mil and 2.3 mil.
Oh, that's less than I thought. I was thinking like 20 million. So that's a lot less than I thought. But yeah, they want $500,000 in cash. Again, there's not a 50 in my back pocket. There's not 500,000. I mean,
So it wouldn't make sense for me to like franchise Blackbird if I wanted to give like my amenities or.
so that's a totally different story. Starting your own franchise is a different deal than purchasing a franchise. So the water store that I bought, we purchased a franchise. So, and the franchise had dissolved, so we had to create a new name, but we essentially bought a franchise. We just didn't have to pay the franchise fees. So we kind of got a little bit of both worlds in that respect. But if you guys want to build up a company and it becomes really nice and big, and then you franchise it, like you guys heard that Gourmandy's was scaling up, it would be very likely that they would then franchise out a company. So you can then purchase that. Franchises are a great way. Absolutely great way to get a really good established business with a lot of support without getting an angel investor or without losing a lot of control, but you get that support. So I'm a big fan of going the franchise route. If I ever lost my job here, the first thing I would do is figure out how to buy Little Caesars. It's like simple, right? Simple. I was going to turn the water store into a Swig. I even reached out to Swig and said, you guys want to partner? And they didn't respond back. And then my partners were not supportive of it. And I was like, this was 5 years ago. I would have been so rich. That would have been a lot of work too. And I like being here. Okay, any other questions? We are out of time, but I'm happy to chat with you guys. Okay, well, thank you guys for being here. Thanks for sticking it out. Make sure you guys all sign the roll, because what I'm going to do is everybody who was here today will be extra credit, since we didn't have a proper speaker. That's just me. So I'm going to give you guys all extra credit and help boost your guys' grades for being here today, okay? Okay, there's still extra credit opportunities in the class. Look for those.
Assignment for this weekend, is it gonna be, do we have an assignment for this weekend over this, or do we?
You know what? I'll just delete it. Yeah, we're all tired. Yeah. I'll do the discussion board. I mean, actually what I'll do is I'll just put a big old note in it that this is extra credit. Don't submit anything in the discussion board. I'm just gonna give you guys full credit for having been here. And I'll turn it from 10 points to 0. So it'll be just straight 10 points to your grade, okay? Okay, guys, we can do this. It's like 3 more weeks. We can do this. And then I'm getting on a plane going to Mexico.
Best country in the world.